So here's the topic for today. When you are managing cyber risk, how do you track the financial or operational impact to know that it is not material or that it is not so sufficient that it would really have a big impact on the business? How do you do that? That's our topic for today. Hang on, I'll be right back and we'll dive into this. Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Charlene Deaver Vasquez, and I always like to start by saying thanks for stopping by and consuming this content. I hope that you find it useful and informative. So today's topic is, how are you managing risk, and are you doing it in a way that allows you to know when you aggregate the risk that you are not crossing a threshold, that you have not accepted so much risk that it could, in total, in aggregate, really have a financial impact to the business if one or more events occurred. So this is a really difficult question, and a lot of cyber professionals and CISOs I've talked to really don't have a good handle on this. So let's take a few minutes and break this down. When you are managing risk, part of what you need to do is manage, understand, and be able to aggregate the impact from those risks that you're really focused on managing. In other words, those risks that you have put into your risk register. So these are not your typical control risks. These are things like the risk of a third-party attack, the risk of any type of cyber attack based on vulnerabilities that exist in your network. This is the risk of experiencing a black swan event, where the probability is very low, but if it occurs, the impact is substantial. All of these risks, including risks from AI, insider threat, emerging risks, all of these are very hard to kind of get your arms around and manage. But that's the whole point and purpose of the risk management program. So it's not really about just keeping track of every risk that pops up or every vulnerability that you have or every control weakness that you've discovered. It's really more about how you manage it. And so managing it is not just tracking, it is understanding two things. Number one, how does each risk that you're tracking, the important ones, how does that relate to the business? And so something that I talk about in my latest book, the CISO Playbook, Mastering Risk Quantification, is about how you need to align the risks to the business. And I suggest doing it by either a key objective of the business, a key project, critical assets within the organization, or functions, key functions of the business. So in order to start doing this, you would need to sit down with the other executives, CIO, CEO, the board, and have a good understanding of what is considered the critical functions that in any type of an event, the business must continue. Those should be top priority. Any risk that can negatively impact those key functions, that needs to be something that is top of mind. And so as you begin looking across these four things, again, I look at key functions, key assets, key projects, and business objectives. Any risk that threatens these are top of mind in your risk register. This is what you're focused on. Now, as you look at these risks, each risk may have, in each category of risk, you might have 2 or 3, 4 or 5, 8, it depends on your organization, individual risks that you're tracking that might have a material impact on any of these 4 key areas, right? And so the potential impact of these could be operational outage that is, just not acceptable to the business, or it could be financial impacts. And so you need a way to get your arms around asking the question. You're going to do some what-if analysis. What if one of these happened? What if 2 of them happened? What if 2 from this category and 2 from that category happened? What if they happened in close succession? What if they were related to each other? And what if they happened all at the same time? Not suggesting that every risk would, but often when you look at the risk register, there are risks that are in fact related. One of the things I suggest in the risk register is having a category that covers the threat vector. So if a threat vector is being leveraged to compromise, often it can be the point of entry for multiple kinds of attacks, multiple kinds of incidences that can happen within the organization. So you need a way to play that what if game, and that tool to do that what if scenario, and do that a couple of different times in different combinations, and really kind of look at what makes sense, what might be the most likely combinations, is your risk register. And in order to do the aggregation, to understand this cannot be qualitative. It has to be quantitative, because that's the only way you can aggregate, is by using the numerical values of operational outages and financial impact. So it doesn't really matter to me which of these is more important to your organization. Not every organization is keyed in as finance being the key indicator that they look at. It might be operational. That might be so core to their business that operational availability must be maintained. That might be your critical function for the business. So that's why it's important to transition away from qualitative to quantitative, and specifically for those risks that have the potential to have a serious or substantial or a negative impact to those key functions. Those are the ones that should go into the risk register, because the risk register should be quantitative, and that is where you should be able to do your aggregation. Okay, so if you don't have a copy, I'll put a link. Make sure you get that latest book, and on the website I have the complete set of tools available so that you can actually do what I'm talking about. You can actually get the risk register and see how the aggregation works. Okay, I'm going to leave you here, and I'll see you in the next one.